Welcome to You Had Me at Bigfoot with your hosts, Tom.
But that's the thing about James is he's got no shame, so he's like quick to be like, give me all your money.
Dustin.
I mean, here's my thing. It may be complete bullshit, but what if it's not?
And James.
The horse match might just be me compensating for a small dick.
With special guest, Dave Outlandish. Make sure your ass likes this video and subscribes to our channel. Follow us on Twitter to join in the live antics at You Had Me Podcast, on Instagram at You Had Me Podcast, and tune in on Periscope Tuesdays at 9 p.m. Eastern Time to watch the show live at You Had Me Podcast. Listen to the show on iTunes and Google Play, and be sure to check out our website, www.youhadmeatbigfoot.com. Now for the most frowned upon video content since Two Girls, One Cup. You Had Me at Bigfoot.
Well, don't say hello, boys. It's not my line.
Hello, boys. Good evening.
Hello, boys.
Good evening. Welcome to You Had Me at Bigfoot.
Good evening.
We're pouring our... What's the word I'm looking for? Our
Libation.
Our shot. It's absinthe.
Bottle flavor.
It's absinthe today, so...
Oh.
Dustin's all stressed out about it, of course.
What brand?
Nothing special. It's Grunfee.
Dustin's all stressed out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Is it German? Sounds German, huh?
It is German
Nothing special. It's
words, but that's about.
Is it green?
I'm sorry.
Is it green or clear?
It's green.
Cool.
So.
Hey man, I love absinthe. I'm a fan. That's why I'm asking.
Yeah, it's it always fucks Dustin up pretty good. So.
You need to mix it with champagne.
We don't pour the sugar, or we don't pour it over the sugar or anything. We just drink it straight. So.
That's bohemian. I drink it with water, at least.
Don't spill it. Who
Drink it with water.
are we toasting to? To not accidentally conjuring something, having Dave Outlandish on the call?
Hey man, you guys have to drink that with water. That's ridiculous. It's an oil tincture with alcohol. If you mix it with water, it separates the oils and you can actually taste what's in it. If you just shoot it straight like that, you're taking it like it's medicine.
Yeah, I don't think you realize who you're talking to here.
I think it is medicine to Tom.
I'm just saying.
It
I don't
soothes,
sound like I kind of am when it comes to...
it soothes my nerves, so it is kind of a...
Yeah, it's got... Dude,
to not conjuring something accidentally because Dave is on the call.
Or
We'll do
two
it.
conjuring something.
Or to that. No!
we'll do it on purpose instead.
Woo.
Do you have a demons?
We accidentally conjured something just now, just by doing that. And that's what we're going to talk about today for everybody at home on the call. All 2, 3 of you. We have, obviously, to my left, your right, maybe? No, your left as well. We have Dustin, back from vacation. So go ahead and apologize to the fan who you left hanging last week, and we had to do Momo by ourselves.
I do not apologize.
All right, stand by your dump. No, he was with his family, so we do have to, I know we have some very loyal fans, and we appreciate the hell out of you, but, sometimes we got to take a break and spend time with our family. So that being said, we also have James on the call here, your favorite and my favorite musician, James, the music guy / what else do you do?
Nothing.
That's it.
I can sit here and be the butt of every joke.
Yes, and then we also have on the call, we have Mattsquatch, who...
Hello, boys.
Hello, boys! And go ahead, I keep cutting you off.
No, it's hard when you have more of a co-host than guest. I just want to say thanks for having me on. I really feel like I have a home here. So, thanks, boys.
No,
Whiskey, it's a nice 10-year-old. It's a Macallan Fine Oak whiskey. So
I'm actually drinking it's called a Kentucky Mule. You take 1 part bourbon you take half a part lime juice, and then you take 2 parts bourbon, and then you pour it over ice, and then you fill up the rest of the glass with ginger beer. It's actually a really interesting drink. It's very good. But I had it. I had it the other day, and now I had to buy all the stuff for it. So that's what I'm drinking tonight.
Yeah, if you've ever had a dark and stormy, which is rum with a twist of lime over ginger beer, or like a Moscow Mule, I find that a lot of stuff goes really well with ginger beer.
It's surprising. So, and then most importantly, ginger beer. Yes, it's delicious. It's actually, I guess, like very popular in Australia. But that brings us to our most important person on this call. I'm a big fan.
Jamus?
Not Jamus.
Oh.
We already talked about him. I'm a big fan. I talk about him a lot on Twitter and on Instagram, and I maintain that I believe he actually made a pact with the demon somewhere along the way, that just to make him seem even cooler than he already is. So that's why we all sit around and talk about how cool he is. A man who has forgotten more about demonology than we will ever know. Mr. Dave Outlandish. Welcome to the show, Dave.
That was a hell of an intro. I don't know how I'm going to live up to it, but I'll give it a shot.
anyone who's listened to episode 10, which I'm going to shamelessly plug the show right now. Episode 10, you had me at demonology, or you had me at Wizard is what it was called. Dave was on the show, and it was a very long episode because he just, like, every time he tried to get off the call, he would just suck us right back in with something else that we were like, oh yeah, what about, this and that and the other. So anyone who's listened to that episode knows that you've got a lot of interesting stuff, and you're a fun, entertaining guest to, as far as I always joke when I gave the hint of who it was going to be on the episode today. I always talk about how you do the inflections in your voice at random points. So I did inflections in the tweet, and I said I gave you plenty of hints with that tweet. But a lot of our fans joined us at the start of the Periscope, which didn't come along until after your episode. So some of them haven't ever seen or listened to that episode, and I encourage you to go back and listen to it. It's full of a lot of fun little factoids about sorcery and demonology and demonic possessions, all the fun stuff that you want to hear about when you've got somebody who deals with demons professionally, I guess, on a professional level. But yeah, if you want to do a quick intro,
you everywhere.
if you want to do a quick intro just for the people who don't know or haven't listened to that episode, it would be great if you did.
Well, okay, I don't know what to say that Jim already said, other than that's what the point of the show is so in the communities that I follow in the Discord that I moderate, and we get a lot of people coming and asking specifically, how do we summon demons? How do I make a pact with Satan? How do I sell my soul to the devil? And, it's the season, right? It's fall now. Halloween's coming up. People are wondering these questions. How do I invite demons to my Halloween party? How do I get them to come to my birthday party? How do I make friends with a demon? How do I get a succubus waifu, right? These are the questions. These are the things that I hear over and over again. And so I kind of wanted to do a brief sort of, how do we make friends with a demon 101,
These all sound like really bad ideas, for the record.
Yeah, I'm not going to do any of these things.
But it is fascinating. It is fascinating.
Now, demons have a long and illustrious history, and they have been part of human culture, and rich part of human culture, for as long as humans have recorded culture. Now, one of the things that demons, I think, the most common characteristic they have throughout culture is that they're usually misattributed, right? Normally, like, for instance, the ancient Assyrians and Babylonians, they believed that demons were responsible for physical ailments, right? Which we know is not necessarily the case. We know the physical ailments, disease specifically comes from bacteria, viruses, etc. Right?
What'd you do without me, man?
So we wouldn't attribute someone's illness to a demonic possession, right? Because we'd be like, oh, they're sick, it's been transmitted by a germ, we have medicine to fix it, right? So as soon as we identified what the cause of these maladies were, we stopped associating them with demons, right? And then demons started being associated with other things because they didn't leave our culture, right? Now, at the same time, ancient Greek daemons, right? And if you look down at African traditions, and if you look at Aboriginal traditions, if you look anywhere else in the world, right? Demons and spirits specifically had real important roles that they played in culture and society. And even in the Bible, right? Even in the Christian and Jewish traditions, demons had a very specific role they played, which was they taught people, right? They did things for people. And so these are the stories that we hear from them. Now, we also hear about possession, which we've already talked about. And we hear about people using these complicated sigils and complicated rituals under certain specific hours of the day and week, conjuring a specific set of archangels after they've purified their bodies. This is the Ars Goetia and the Key of Solomon, the Lesser Keys of Solomon. It's a bitch, man. It's a serious ritual, but you got to think about what direction it's coming from, right? It's probably not ancient as it says it is. It is definitely old, right? It's probably written by monks at the very oldest. But one thing it wants to do is control these demons. It wants to create a conjuration where they, A, manifest themselves physically, B, can be compelled by the sorcerer to do things, and are confined within a specific location. Now, all of these things require, apparently, complicated rituals to perform. Purifications. You can't nut for like months. I don't even, man, it's ridiculous. You have to wear the lamina, the whole robe and garb and jewels, and apparently this will protect you. Now, while they're doing this, everybody else is just interacting with demons without any protection. Spirits are encountering these people, reportedly entering their bodies, right? These people are symptomatic of these dissociative trance, where it's not a disorder. They did it on purpose. It's an ecstatic trance-like state, right? Where they dissociate and they claim that they are being ridden by these spiritual entities, right? And not every encounter with a demon is like that. But my point is that these people are fine. They don't fucking drop dead, right? Their houses don't get turned upside down. Their walls don't bleed fucking blood, right? Their toiletries don't cry the tears of the unavenged, none of that shit happens to them. Nothing that people are scared of when it comes to demonic interaction happens to these people who, as part of their culture, regularly just fucking talk to demons all the time. The point is that the way we interact with demons and the way they interact with us apparently is based largely on how we expect it's going to go down, right? So you get a lot of, especially in Christian traditions, Judeo-Christian traditions, you get a lot of this. Demons are here because they hate humans, and they want to trick you, and they want to consume you, and they want to kill you, etc., etc. You will be possessed, they will take over your body. Now, if you look at the behavior that demons want, are usually invested in, it can be, considered sinful, right? Because they want to bone. You guys aren't supposed to bone till you're married. They want to drink to excess. You guys aren't supposed to drink to excess, right? They like ritual scarification. You guys aren't supposed to scarify yourselves and shit. They like doing magical rituals and things, right? As a forms of expression, as a way to communicate their ideals to you, right? Inspiration. You get inspiration from them. You produce a final product. You look at this final product, which is usually your magical ritual or some kind of demonic symbolism, and this is what we kind of attribute a lot of this art to. You look at it and you get some kind of insight off of it, right? Now, that idolatry is something that you guys frown upon too. So from the perspective of a Judeo-Christian standpoint, encountering demons and dealing with them is kind of fundamentally going to be sinful, right? Now, if you don't care, if that's not a thing that bothers you, if you're like, yeah, I'm down with idolatry, I'm cool with doing pagan rituals, I'm okay with premarital sex, I'm cool with doing these other kind of things, then demons, I mean, I don't know, they're not scary. That's what they want. They don't want to destroy humans. They just, they're not conducive to Christian living because you guys have rules against the stuff that they want to experience. I mean, I guess there's other ideological reasons, but in my opinion, that's sort of the demon's deal, you know what I'm saying? Kind of personal. You could ask a demon what its ideological problems are with God or with Christianity or with whatever, and I probably bet you'll get a different answer from each demon, right? And I bet that each person who asks a demon will get a different answer for each time, you know, each person that asks will get a different answer from the same demon. It's a very personal experience, all of it is. Now that I've done that whole spiel about why you shouldn't necessarily fear the demons, here's the bottom line. If these are real entities, if they're real invisible spirit monsters, and they can really communicate with you telepathically or psychically, then you should just be able to ask them questions and invoke their presence, and they should be able to hear you and show up. Now, just because they're there doesn't mean A, you're paying attention, or B, you're interesting enough for them to make contact with, right? So there's some stipulations here. How do you be interesting enough to make sure that they're going to contact you? And how do you make sure you're paying enough attention to make sure that you're doing in contact, right? Bottom line, all you need to do is say, hey, demons, what's up? Now, that's the most basic. Because you're not talking to the air. You actually, if the case is so that there are invisible spirit creatures there, you're talking to them. Now, the other possibility is that demons are personal psychosomatic manifestations of archetypical behavioral concepts within the human mind, right? That each demon is a facet of you personally, and they're individual for each person. And maybe they're all purely psychological creation. If that's the case, still interact with them as if they were invisible spirit monsters. Nothing changes in how you interact, right? So either they're parts of your psyche or they're invisible spirit monsters. Either way, all you need to do is actually ask. Now, to answer the first question, how do we become interesting enough? That's where ritual comes in. So if there's like 1 million people all trying to communicate at the same time, you want to be louder than all these other people who are trying to communicate, right? So we're looking at effort, we're looking at community experience, so you want to get other people involved. We're looking at complicated symbolism and, an effort that you put into it. Actual energetic expenditure during the ritual. Now, so if you want to make a gigantic feast, that's cool. That's a cool way to invite people over to have a good time, right? If you want, now imagine a demon's like a friend or a person that you don't know necessarily, but you want to reach out to, right? You got their contact information. You want to reach out to them, right? Now, do you be like, hey man, come over to my house over this scented candle in my messy room, right? And teach me fucking geology in the language of birds, right? You're not, no, fuck you, no. You want to invite these entities over, have a party, man. Invite other people over too. Have a good time. The most effective conjurations that I've ever done have been done in the forms of these parties, right? Feasts. And then even in a lot of these other traditions, they use feasting, right? Everybody gets inebriated because we're not here doing scientific exploration, right? We're not trying to conjure these creatures because we want to measure them or something. We don't need to be in a sober laboratory state of mind, right? So be festive. Invite them around and have incentives for them to show up. And once they're there, keep your requests realistic, right? Now, say I am a invisible spirit creature. Now, say I maybe have the ability to manifest physically, right? Maybe I can make you think I manifested physically. Now, either way, if I'm not immediately doing that, obviously, clearly, it takes effort. It's kind of, wouldn't it be rude of you to invite me into your home and then immediately demand that I manifest myself physically, right? Like, what the fuck is that, man? You invited me here. Now you want me to, like, put on an extra pair of fucking, you know, physically materialize a pair of clothes? Like, can I not be comfortable and invisible and naked? So, again, one of these things that these medieval sorcerers are asking these demons to do is come forward now, stay here, manifest, and give me this specific in my moldery old masturbatorium, you know? Hell out of it. It's ineffective. Don't ask him to manifest physically. Don't ask for anything specifically. If you know what you want, if you have it in mind, if you have a pact in mind, make that and get it ready in advance, right? If you write the pact, get it ready in advance. Ask for realistic things. People are all like, how do I sell my soul for, you know, fame and fortune and $1 million? And it's like, man, there's 7 billion people on Earth. And 90% of them would sell their soul for a cheeseburger, right? What makes you think that your soul is worth the fame and fortune that literally every other person on Earth wants, right? This is an unrealistic request. This is an example of you don't have enough credit to bargain for all the fame and fortune in the world.
Do you, Dave Outlandish, have that credit? Like, do you have it? I just want to cut you off real quick and ask, like, does somebody like you who has been dealing with these entities and do you have that clout that you're talking about? Like, where you could ask for something that maybe I or Dustin or just any other guy off the street, that you could ask for something that we wouldn't be able to?
I don't want to claim that I have any kind of special privilege or connections necessarily that would give me kind of special favors, right? On the other hand, I do have a reputation, I would say, in the sense that I have built up relationships already with these entities. So I already experience a confidence in my interaction with these entities, or if it is a psychological event, right? I already have established a confidence and an authority paradigm, right? So that, you know, like, say you go to a hospital, right? And a guy has on a white coat and he gives you a pill, and you eat the pill and it's a placebo, right? It's because you were in a hospital, it's because you had on a white coat. These symbols of authority allow for your body to manifest these, your brain to manifest these physiological events. Now, the same holds true for me, someone who you say has the clout, right, versus a normal person. I have cultural symbols of authority already assigned to me, meaning that I don't have to work for them already in the minds of people that I'm working with, right? I don't have to prove to the people that I'm working with that I am a wizard because I already come with these culturally established symbols of being a wizard. So their brains accept this, and we go straight to the creating psychological effect, right? So if it is real and there are invisible spirit creatures, then I would say that my relationships with them maybe give me a professional edge in dealing with them. You know, in the sense that I can broker pacts for people. If we're talking about purely psychological events, psychosomatic events, then I would say that my pre-existing symbols of authority help establish the necessary parameters for placebo and nocebo.
Did you, now this I need a yes or no. At one time, did you make a deal with a demon, or did you create a pact with a demon that makes you better at making pacts with demons? Like, you know, the wishing for more wishes with a genie. Did you somehow cheat the system that makes you a better deal maker with demons through the power of a demon? Yes or no?
to answer that question. I can't answer but I will tell you what my original pact was, because that's not a secret. My original pact, when I made a pact, when I first did it as a teenager, I was like, Satan, the devil, I will sell you my soul. All I want in exchange is to be your servant for eternity. And that was my pact.
So what is a soul to somebody who, to somebody like you, who's, I believe you would say you're, I don't want to put a label on it, but you're not particularly religious, right?
Well, so what I think a soul is, I think a soul is, it's not a thing, it's a condition. A soul is your aliveness, right? You are alive, therefore you have the condition of having a soul, right? And so an entity that is not alive, like a demon, right, can use your soul to experience aliveness through that, right? So it's not like your soul's going anywhere. Your condition of aliveness does not leave you. You're not actually selling your soul. You are renting the use of your soul, kind of, right? Like the experience of aliveness. Now, this doesn't just work with demons. This goes the same way for everyone. It's not coincidence that we say that you're selling your soul to a political organization or to a corporation, right? Because it's sort of the same thing. Because an ideology will piggyback on your capacity for aliveness in order to make changes in the world, right? An ideology doesn't make changes in the world by itself. It co-opts your aliveness, and then you get out and put boots on the ground and make those changes, right? So it's the same way that a demon works. A demon isn't alive, right? Through your aliveness, it gets down there, puts boots on the ground, and experiences things, right?
I've got a question.
Yeah.
So when you hear about like all the famous rich people in the world, you know, the people that control it, when you hear about like the Rothschilds and Rockefellers and the royal family and all these rich people, politicians, the elitists that a lot of the UFO people and things seem to go through. And you hear a lot of reports and rumors of these, they call it satanic. I don't know if there's a better term for it, but they have these rituals and they have these sacrifices, and people, you know, do heinous stuff like offer up their own kids to the devil or their bodies or kidnap people and offer them up. Is that kind of what we're talking about out on the very extreme ends here, how people have extreme wealth, money, and power, and sometimes they resort to this kind of thing?
So from my personal experience, I don't encourage any kind of violence or sacrifice. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's necessary. And specifically animal sacrifice, people ask me about that too. And I'm not against it as a practice is concerned, right? Like, however,
I just don't want to kill people or animals for this.
So the reason that a sacrifice is a sacrifice is because it's a thing that is valuable to us, right? For as far as animal sacrifice goes, they're valuable to us because they produce food, right? So like, but in a society where food is abundant, an animal is not valuable for its food. So its sacrifice is actually really, so it's not a sacrifice, it's not a sacred thing, it's inappropriate. Now, if you have specific deals that are, you know, part of specific traditions, because there are traditions that do chicken sacrifices and things like that, right? These animals are anyway, usually, right?
Right.
Right. But as far as child sacrifice, and back to your point about, is there a satanic Illuminati that's controlling the earth and making deals with demon aliens and shit?
Yes.
I think that this is a case of misattribution. I think that...
I wasn't necessarily questioning if it was true. I was just saying people in extreme wealth and extreme power and privilege is it common, we'll say, for them to call upon demons to, like, for their success at higher levels? Was basically my question. I wasn't going to go into if the Illuminati was real and all that.
I guess what I'm getting at is that for some of these people, they are part of religions where that's the case. Now, non-religiously, people tend to associate with demons not specifically as demons, right? So when people are like, oh, they sold their soul to the devil for success, you imagine a ritual where they specifically, or they sacrifice children, right? But imagining these rituals where these, now, instead of this, imagine if these people didn't put it as that in their minds. If they weren't thinking, oh, I'm going to make the sacrifice, if instead they were just fully 100% dedicated to these ideas and these efforts, like demons have always, especially in the ancient Greek, been called their inspiration, right? So we're think demons less like an entity that you can call into your bedroom and you can make a bargain with, and more like an intense, repetitive thought pattern, right, that you can experience simultaneous to your own. So perhaps these people, with their unique ambition and drive, attracted demonic entities to them, engaged in pact-like behavior, right? But instead of being focused on occultism and understanding what they were doing as far as conjuring demons are concerned, what they were doing is focusing on what they wanted, right? And demons are attracted to this kind of behavior, and they don't need a ritual to show up to you and make a deal with you, right?
Right.
If a demon is attracted to you, they'll come to you on your own, and they'll make a deal with you, and you might not even know it. You might be living your entire life with pacts made with demons all across, and you would never know it at all, right? Because the way that we experience reality isn't the way they do, and they don't really care, to necessarily sit on everything that's going on.
Yeah, and I've also heard a lot, especially in ancient traditions, I'm sure you're aware of it going the other way. Like some Buddhists, like especially around like in Nepal and certain different sects in Hindu sects, and in like Hinduism and stuff like that, where obviously it would be a sin or a crime in their religion to kill somebody, but to a lot of people, having the very thought of hurting or killing somebody is considered a sin. And it's supposed to bring them to like another level of consciousness and, how their bodies disappear and do all this other kind of stuff. It seems like, like the whole old concept of light magic and dark magic, like positive thoughts, positive feelings, and positive experiences and helping people, the light, so to speak, is kind of like one way to get there, and then the other way where you're not really calling upon demons, but you're using that negativity and that energy for another means. It seems like there's two sides of it. Am I wrong?
Yeah, and at the same time, like I'm saying, even if you look just at the Ars Goetia, this is one example of 72 demons. Not all of them are necessarily bad, right? Now, the whole book of the Ars Goetia, of the Goetia, Lesser Key of Solomon, the Legematron, has other spirits in it that aren't demons or angels, and they're like neutral, right? And even the demons aren't necessarily bad, they just are aligned against the God of the Jews, right? The God of Solomon at the time, according to this narrative. So it's like, demons aren't only associated with violence and negativity. Like I'm saying, I think it's a misattribution. People scapegoat demons, and then when a demon or a spirit does something beneficial, clearly this couldn't be the work of demons because it's something good. But that's only been within the last, few centuries that we have really, thanks to Christianity largely, consider demons to be objectively totally evil and against humanity,
Right.
So here, I want to jump in because we have a lot of people asking questions about things that were actually covered on the last episode. And like I said, it's not to bash anybody who is asking these questions, because these are important questions. These are like the same questions that I had, that I still struggle with, that I still have a hard time understanding. But since we've got them here, what I want to do is I do want to answer some of these questions in like layman, not not demonologist fashion, just so that hopefully like the way that it processed in my head will help people at home who are having these questions. And if I'm wrong, feel free to tell me I was totally wrong, when I'm done. But one of the big questions was like, so these demons, they are basically hitching a ride with people when the pact is made. So what he had discussed last time and kind of touched on this time was when you make a pact with a demon, a lot of times you might not even realize it, because a lot of it comes from like the deepest desires, and that's essentially what it is. It's like a desire, and whether or not your desire of sitting there thinking, man, I wish I had a new job, or I hope I get that new job, I hope I get it. And if you want it hard enough, maybe a demon, if they are in fact, and I'm going to use your line, if they are in fact flying invisible monsters, they hear that and they think, that's my chance, that's my opportunity, I can help this person. And they come in, and this moves us into our new point of like, they will attach themselves or like kind of inhabit you in a way that they get a free ride out of it, because otherwise they're essentially just floating around without purpose, doing whatever it is they do, but they think, but there's some like incentive to be in a person to live a life that they want to live in this mortal type plane. If this is what demons are, they inhabit that person and they get a free ride out of it. And what they'll do is they will use that person and they will do everything in their power to make that goal happen, whether that means doing it illegally, or it will compel you to do it in a way that it will get done. Now, whether or not that's the legally, ethically, morally right way to do it is kind of like a gray area for that, but they're just trying to help you to get from where you're at to where you get that new job. Now, if that means slashing the tires of your greatest or your like closest competitor, where you're like, oh, that thought might have never popped up in your head, but you find yourself in an opportunity where you have a pocket knife and you're near their car and it's time to go to work and you slash their tire and they're late, and then that influences the decision of who gets the job or who gets the promotion. It's kind of like that. Like, you will do things that you are compelled to do by this demon who is trying to help you get there, but the rules that they abide by are different than the rules that perhaps you abide by, as if you were, say, a Christian or just a person who has certain morals where you're like, I'm not going to cut somebody's tire, or I'm not going to do damage to somebody else's property. But that demon is like, the best way to do this is going to be to cut this guy's tire, and that's just how they do it. And we kind of talked about this on the last one, was a lot of times we talk about how like somebody may have sold their soul to the devil or sold their soul to a demon, and that's how they became famous. And you think about people like River Phoenix, which was the example that we gave last time. He died of an overdose in a nightclub because he was partying really hard, doing drugs, and ended up ODing in the nightclub. Is that because he went into a lifestyle that allowed him to, like, perhaps he, and this is, we're just speculating, this is not something that we know or whatever, did he at one point make a deal with the demon or pact with the demon saying, I want to be famous? And the demon said, okay, well, we're going to have to do a lot of drugs and suck a lot of dicks to make that happen. And what he did was he went out, and I'm not saying River Phoenix was sucking people's dicks or doing a whole bunch of drugs prior to, but maybe he went out and he did some things with some people that were maybe less than like what somebody in his position would have normally done had he gone into accounting instead of into making movies. And he went out and he did some things and that maybe he's not proud of, but it was the work of a demon who's like, hey, if we do this, we're going to be able to become famous because that's where the people that we need to contact are at right now. So if we go and do this, we're going to become famous, and da 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 da. And then as time went on, and that that lifestyle that the demon likes to live became what River Phoenix likes to live, and they just kind of merged into one. And that's what it means to, I think, and I don't want to put words in your mouth or anything, but I think that's what you were getting at when you say a soul not being necessarily like a thing, but like our existence, and I always like to say this, what the Scientologists call a thetan, just your existence and what drives your brain. But that's what they want. They just want to be there with you for the ride, and so that's what it means to sell, or like Dave said, to rent that space within you to go for a ride. And then you go out and you do all these things that like perhaps are not favorable to people like Judeo-Christian values or whatever the case may be, but those are things that a demon likes to do. And a lot of times, sometimes we like to go out, maybe I like to go out and smoke crack. That's something that maybe a demon wants to do too. So like, I would never know that a demon is attached to me because, hey, we both like smoking crack. And we'll never know. And that's what I think what you mean when you say, there are some people who just never know. Like, there are people whose lifestyles are in line with what a demon would want their lifestyle to be in line with. So you just kind of go through your whole life not realizing, oh, there's a demon with me. And then one of the big questions was, what's the consequence of having a demon attached to your soul or attached to you? What is the consequence in, like, when you die? Like, is there a consequence to that? And I hope I answered the questions. Dave, I know I gave you a lot to work with. Is there anything you want to say, and can you answer that question?
Okay, well, first off, I party with accountants, and they party really fucking hard.
Well, there you go. They're probably all the same. They probably are all in line with the way a demon would want to live as well, so you never know.
But, and it's not, and like I said, it's not necessarily, this is why it's important for us to use language, right? Like I said, do they do these sacrifices intentionally? And if you can accidentally make a pact with a demon and be successful, why would you do it on purpose, like intentional? And this is really important because you don't want to be, as you were putting it, compelled to do things that may be detrimental to your goal, right? Because if you slash the tires at the dude at work, if you get caught, you don't need that job, man, right? You're in jail. So it's detrimental overall to the goal. Now, this is why it's important to do it intentionally, because this way you can have a discussion and have an exchange, a transaction. You can make a pact. You can write it down if you want to. You don't have to, but you can. You can sign it in blood. You can burn it, right? You can put it in a box and bury it at a crossroads with a fucking chicken bone and a picture of yourself and some hair, right? Put some blood from your left hand at 3 a.m. if you want to, right? You could burn a black handle, right? Inscribed with the fucking, the name of the demon that you want to encounter, and you can put it in a bowl of sacrificial blood and wax and perfume and tobacco and rum, right? And then burn the candle all the way down, all night long, right? You could do that if you want to, too. There are a lot of ways to do it. However you feel is good enough to get their attention, this is what you want to do, right? And if you do it on purpose, then you can set parameters. You can be like, yeah, I would like, to be better at this, but I don't want to be rich at all costs, I want to be happy, I think people are going to be like, okay, happiness is cool, right? But you'll be like, no, I don't just want to be happy, right? Let's not, because is like a pig eating its own crap in a mud puddle is happy, right? That's not what you want. So you got to be explicit and really think about these pacts that you're trying to make. And that's why it's important to do it on purpose if you're going to do it, rather than to do it on accident or to allow it to occur involuntarily, especially if you're a religious person. Like if you do subscribe to Judeo-Christianity and you're like, oh man, I feel like I might be going through the first stage of demonic possession, which is called demonic obsession. And you're like, oh man, I'm a Christian, but I feel like I'm going through demonic obsession. My advice to you is to make a pact with the demon and be like, I'll pour out 1 bottle of rum if you leave me alone. And then pour out 1 bottle of rum. Right?
So that's we'll come back to that. You keep going. I'm going to write that down. We'll come back to that because I want to talk about that.
Okay. But as far as what happens to you after you die, I don't know, man. We don't know. And to be honest, I wouldn't trust the spirit to tell me what happens to me after I die. Because you get a lot of different answers from them.
Well, for me, I think what Tom was trying to ask, to kind of simplify it, and I think you're going to say that you don't know, which nobody knows, is it's kind of, if you participate in these, if you participate in these activities that you're describing, when you die, you meet your maker, so to speak.
If you feel like your actions have a karmic weight, then your actions have a karmic weight, in my opinion, right? And so, if you feel like your actions have a karmic weight and you do these things knowing that they have a weight, right? I feel like when you die, you're not going to be able to argue against them having a weight, right? So if you die, if you get judged by somebody, you know what I mean? If you don't feel like you did anything wrong, then maybe you can argue that you didn't do anything wrong. But if you really feel like it was something wrong, you can't argue that it wasn't wrong. It's that's what I'm saying. If you feel like it's wrong, maybe you shouldn't be doing it. But I don't feel like it's wrong personally.
Because the thing is, if you subscribe to the judgment that will come, if you're a Christian, the judgment that will come from when you report to heaven in time at Judgment Day, and you stand before the throne and you have to answer to Christ for your sins and for your decisions that you made in life, that's perfect what you just said. Because if you are a Christian and you think, wow, demons are something that I should personally not be dealing with, and then you do, and then come that time when you report to the throne and Jesus says, how come you made a deal with the demon? And you can't at that point, given what we know, again, if you are a believer in the Bible and in the Christian faith, you cannot sit there and say, well, I didn't know. Because what you're saying with, if you think there is a weight, whether it be karmic, whether it be religious, whether it be whatever, you cannot at that point say, well, I didn't know, because you had that mental struggle at some point. So my advice to you, and this is, we'll continue going because I love hearing about this, and I hope that you do too. I hope you're enjoying this as much as we do. But and as all of you at home know, that I am a very, very religious, very Christian person, but at the same time, and a lot of our listeners, the funny thing is, and I was talking to Dave about this the other day, a lot of our listeners are very conservative Christian people, and they all love Dave Outlandish because he knows all this stuff and he is very willing to talk about it, despite knowing that, and again, at the same time, without subscribing to one particular, they're invisible flying monsters, or it's a psychological thing, or they don't exist. So it's fun to talk about, but again, you cannot pretend that you didn't know. So if that's your thing, maybe don't deal with demons, period. If that's your thing, personally, I will not make a pact with the demon. That's just my choice, and I recommend that if you feel that you should not, don't do it. But at the same time, we live in America, most of us. I mean, the majority of our listenership is Wisconsin and Canada, and we have the Constitution, which allows you to believe what you want and to practice how you feel, how you see fit. So if this is something that you want to do, go nuts. But if this is something that maybe you think that you probably shouldn't do, maybe just don't do it. Like Dave is saying, if you feel like there's a karmic weight, don't do it. So that's my disclaimer for the show. And I guess we probably should have done that earlier, because there are people at home right now drawing with chicken blood all over their floor, like a pentagram and stuff. So, but yeah.
Well, not that far.
Yeah. I'm
already naked, man.
So before we move further into this, And I know we have questions that people are asking, but James, I see you there with your dog. Do you have your guitar handy?
Song time?
Sacrifice your dog.
Sacrifice your guitar.
No, don't sacrifice the doggos.
The dog is way cuter than James, so
We should just have the dog on. Can we have, what's his name? Is it Bandit or Smokey? I forget which one.
It's Tucker, actually.
Oh, well, you didn't even stick with the one. You were talking to me about naming your dog, and then you didn't even keep either one of the names that you wanted.
Yeah,
Totally sacred to the gods of the underworld.
I miss Art.
I miss Anubis.
Anubis was the name of my first dog as an adult, and he looked just like Anubis, the gatekeeper of the Egyptian underworld.
Dogs are sacred to the gods of the underworld. So don't sacrifice. And cats are sacred to the witch goddesses and shit. So like you don't sacrifice either of them. Like,
What animal are we allowed to sacrifice? For goodness sakes.
A gerbil.
no, culturally, food animals. Animals that you would eat would be the ones you'd sacrifice because it is in their context as food that they are being offered.
I think sacrificing a goat is irresponsible, Mattsquatch, because, and I talked about this the other day, I think that goats themselves
are demons.
Yes. Not necessarily the goats themselves, but I think demons inhabit goats because they're scary when you look at them, especially when they've got the four horns and like they're all black and everything. But then on top of that,
let me tell you something.
But hold on, let me finish, Mattsquatch. But on top of that, nobody ever would expect the Barnyard's D students of being evil or being demons. So I think that's the perfect place for a demon to just kind of hang out, maybe take a nap, just park themselves in a goat, so that people wouldn't they would never think, oh, we need to kill that goat because it's a demon, it's evil. Nobody thinks that about the D student of the Barnyard. Go ahead, Mattsquatch. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Have you ever fucked a goat?
Okay. Well, first off, my wife works on a farm. If you'd like a goat, I can get you a goat for $50 in under an hour. I can really hook you up with a goat. But one thing I've noticed in hanging around farms, because like I said, my wife works in one, is sheep are stupid and scared, but goats are actually very smart, and they have a certain, almost like a dog. They come up to you, they want to be petted. They can be mischievous, they'll headbutt you when you're not looking. They'll try eating your keys or your wallet or whatever. Goats are, if you go to a farm, goats are actually one of the smarter, more clever creatures there. And they taste quite a bit different than sheep, by the way.
Now, is that all goats, or is that the ones that are inhabited by very intelligent, flying, invisible monsters?
It seems to be most goats, but you kind of look at a goat's eye and they have a different eye. They have this kind of crossways looking slit to their pupil. You know how a cat's is very vertical? Well, they have like a horizontal slit, and you look into their eye and it's got kind of this dead, weird, you're like, oh, it's a cute goat, until you look into their eye real close, and I think you're onto something there. Goats do have kind of a certain creepiness to them.
I'm telling you,
even in like sheep, it's not like sheep would be a help over the fence.
Even in the Bible, they say that when Jesus refers, I believe it's in a parable about the sheep being moved to the left to go to heaven, and the goats go to the right and go to hell. So, and like Cake would say, sheep go to heaven, goats go to hell. So, go ahead, Dave. I know I saw you trying to come in there.
Also in the literature, Jesus also, Legion, the guy who is eating and presumably having sex with corpses in the cemetery, and then Jesus cast the demons out of him. He cast them into pigs, and then he made the pigs run off the cliff because he doesn't care about pigs. But so in literature, demons can definitely inhabit animals, and I don't see why they wouldn't be able to.
And I know maybe we can get into that after the song. I know Mattsquatch and I were talking about this the other day, and he has some really interesting questions for you about that. So, but James, go ahead, jump in with your song.
I'm busy.
Stop touching yourself.
No, how could you tell? I was trying to make it look like I was playing the guitar, but
no, you're playing the skin flute.
What is that noise?
You don't want to know. Like if there's if Dave Outlandish's icon is got the blue circle around it, and you're hearing weird noises, you probably don't want to know what's going on over there. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh. I'm gonna ignore it then. Alright. I just wrote this song. Alright. Like 10 seconds from now. You ready?
No.
Been ready. Been ready. Yeah.
This is gonna be the greatest fucking party of the year. My buddy invited his demons friends. They're gonna bring all the alcohol and beer, so we should all get really fucked up on demon alcohol. Then maybe we'll make a pact with $1 million. If I sold the fruit that much, I really hope it is. Or maybe it's only worth a trip to Disneyland with the best friend D-Train. I really hope that D-Train wants to go back to Disneyland again this summer, but I blame him. So this whole trip depends on multiple things. If the demon's okay, and if Dustin wants to go, and if Dustin's okay, me inviting the demon on the trip to Disneyland. I don't think it'll be such a good idea to bring a demon with us to Disneyland. Even though Dave Outlandish said they're not all that bad, as long as you're still looking for the same things like sex and drugs and alcohol and premarital sex, which is pretty much all that I get. Cause the 2 times that I've been married, I regret.
And trans sex.
No, let's not take it there. Come on.
Disneyland is already full of demons, I guarantee it.
So
I forgot 90% of the stuff that we talked about in this episode because I was too busy reading the chat. So that's why I focused on Dustin and Disneyland.
James tuned out when I said Dustin was at Disneyland or Disney World. You didn't even pay attention to that because I say he was at Disney World, but totally different side of the country.
World doesn't rhyme with whatever I was trying to say.
Just
Moved to tears.
It's the same, trust me.
That was a great song this week. Good job, Jamus.
Thank you.
I'm being sincere.
Oh.
people don't say nice things about James very often. The other day I said something nice to him on Twitter or in a text or something, and he was like, thank you. Because normally we're talking shit.
He doesn't compliment well.
It was that song about the horse mask. I said that song had me rolling. Just talk, because I was even watching the replay as I was editing the footage. I said, man, that is a really funny song. And I was like, even when we were recording, I could not stop laughing. I had tears running down my cheeks because I was laughing. And then when I was editing the Momo episode and we said something about the horse mask and no, but with the horse mask on, and Jake even said, no, but with the horse mask on? What does that even mean? And that was like the exact point I was trying to make with that poll answer. And I just could not. I was crying when I was trying to edit the footage. There's nothing like when one of my jokes makes me laugh again, and that's really all I'm trying to do. Is I'm trying to impress myself and maybe like one fan or whatever who watches the show. Like that's all I strive to achieve in what I do. So when I go back and I edit the stuff and I'm laughing at my own jokes, I know we did all right. But go ahead, Mattsquatch. I know you had some really good questions that we talked about, and I want you to like really, and we talked about them a little bit before the show, but I want you to ask those questions of Dave because some of them were really interesting, and I think a lot of the fans will get a kick out of them.
Well, I've got a lot of stuff, and as I'm sitting here thinking, I was thinking of some different stuff that we kind of didn't really go over. So I got a couple questions, and then I got kind of a story that I wanted to get your opinion on. So I guess I'll start with the story.
Whatever.
another podcast, a real famous one for Bigfoot, Sasquatch Chronicles. They had a guest on. He was on there a couple times. This was a while back. And he was not a Bigfoot person, not a researcher, not into this stuff at all. He had moved into a small housing community, and I want to say maybe it was even out in your area like Wyoming or Minnesota or Montana, somewhere kind of farther up north than here from Southern California. But he had moved in up there, and his brother moved in right down the street. Like his brother was like 3 or 4 doors down. And I guess they had their own business, so they fought on this cul-de-sac. Well, soon after they moved in, they started having, like the very first day, they started seeing these big hairy creatures in their backyard. And then they started running across their driveway. They would see these Bigfoots peeking in through their windows. And we're not talking just about one Bigfoot humming through the backyard looking around. We're talking like there was one at the front door and one at the back door. And when he would pull his car out of the garage, they would be waiting for him at the end of his dirt road driveway. And they would follow the wife around, and he would, one of the real famous parts of that episode is that this thing followed him home from the road, and he got out of his car and ran inside as fast as he could and locked the door inside his garage. And he came back out later with his hunting rifle, and there were muddy footprints all the way up to this door in his garage, and there was a handprint on the door where it looked like the Bigfoot was getting in. And he noticed the whole neighborhood was essentially being terrorized by these things. His brother was seeing them. They were all over the backyard. There were like tons of them. There was like a whole clan of these things, like 15 or 20 of these Bigfoots that were harassing the whole community. No one wanted to talk about it. You could call the cops for a prowler, and they said, we'll send somebody right out. But they never came out. I guess this cul-de-sac that this group lived on, these 2 families with neighbors, was adjacent to National Forest, going way, way back into the hills, with lots of trees and hills and rocks and everything you would expect to see in the woods. And I guess it just kept getting worse and worse. It got to the point where they were sitting on their roofs at night with rifles,
and it was an
trying to shoot at these things. And one thing that they found was really odd in the neighborhood is there was this homeless old bag lady. We're talking a lady probably in her late 50s, early 60s, withered, dark face, ratty hair, ratty clothes. And she always had a backpack and a shopping cart wandering around their neighborhood. And they thought it was really odd because it's kind of a somewhat remote community, little housing tract out in the middle of nowhere. They had no idea where this lady slept or where she was from, but they would see her occasionally, like walking across the street. Or this guy was saying with him and his brother, they would see her walking off into the woods, and they were going to stop her, like, don't go out there. There's a bunch of murderous Bigfoots out there. And one of the things that struck these brothers as odd is they kept seeing this lady around. Like this lady would walk by their house, and then they would, a while later, the Bigfoots would come up to the house and peek in through the windows and try doorknobs and try breaking in. And I think they had dogs killed. I mean, it was getting like as bad as Bigfoot activity gets. They said one of the odd things in this description is she was really just kind of this nondescript, old, dumpy-looking woman. But even walking in the dirt, her shoes were bright white. She had these bright white tennis shoes on. And he would like see her cross the street. He would open it, run from the window out to the door and run out to the street to go try to talk to this old bag lady. And she would be gone very, very mysteriously. And I guess one day he was finally on the street and he sees this old bag lady and he's shouting at her like, hello, hello. And he's trying to get her attention because he wants to talk to her about the Bigfoots because she sees this old bag lady go off into the woods at dusk where he knows all these Bigfoots are, and he wants to talk to her. And I guess she's completely ignoring him, this lady, and he goes up and grabs her arm, and this lady turns around and looks at him, and he says she smiled the most evil, demonic smile he had ever seen. And the lady said, I'm trying to remember. I don't think she said anything. I think she just shot him this really evil smile and kind of trudged off into the woods where all these Bigfoots are. And I guess later on they kind of invoked the name of Christ and started hanging crosses and crucifix around and the holy water and kind of doing stuff you do for like a traditional exorcism, kind of like a Tom's Alley. And I guess that got the Bigfoot activity to really calm down. And this has always been a really weird source, but I kind of wanted to get your take on what do you think they saw and what do you think this lady, or dressed as a lady, or what do you think was going on?
Well, I think for one thing, she says she smiles this evil, demonic smile, right? Now, again, this is kind of using demonic as an adjective, right?
Well, correct. That's his words.
So I don't think, other than now, let's assume that there's no demonic activity at all, right? That's what I'm going to say. I'm going to say I don't see any demonic activity here whatsoever, and this is what I'm going to explain why. I think it's totally possible, because I believe, again, that it's totally possible for there to be groups of hominids, living around in the woods in these areas. And so if there is a lady out there and she was involved with this group of hominids, right, and she was sharing, food and stuff with them, and maybe she was one of the reasons why they weren't scared of people. They were all over the people's houses and stuff, right? Now, her being confronted probably changed her behavior, right? Because she, being confronted by the people physically, probably ended up hanging around town less. Because if I got physically grabbed, especially if I was a homeless person who didn't have any kind of health care, right? Being physically threatened is serious fucking business, right? Especially an old woman with no health care, she doesn't want to get physically threatened. So she gets grabbed by some guy, right? I can imagine that affected how she behaved, which then the whole community starts engaging in similar activities. Now, if you're a hominid creature who lives in a community and you engage in community-like behaviors, then you will recognize this community behaving together, acting in these community-like behaviors, hanging crosses, walking around doing these prayers, and I'm assuming they're Protestants, so being Protestants, it's a little bit more loud than some of the other versions of Christianity are, they are a little more demonstrative, you know what I mean? So imagine you're a group of sociable hominids who are interacting with a community of other hominids because you've already had interaction with this other group member of their group, the bag lady, right? So now you're more familiar with their group, you feel comfortable trying to steal food from them, trying to engage them, right? But then now she starts acting weird because she got threatened. Now the community is all doing the same thing, right? Doing something that's clearly all together, right? I feel like that kind of behavior is clearly threatening on an anthropological level, right?
Well, and one of the things, one of the major theories out there, and this isn't necessarily something I believe as somebody who's into it, but I respect all points of view and find it fascinating, was the two major points that a lot of people pointed out is that she was some kind of a witch and that she was somehow controlling these creatures, or that she was a physical manifestation of something, or she herself was possessed, was one theory, and she was inviting all her fellow demons to take over these Sasquatches because they're very human-like, but they don't necessarily have a soul like a human. So they're an empty vessel that could be invaded by entities, and then to kind of do her bidding or this chief demon's bidding. Now, these are just theories out there that I've heard.
Yeah. And like I said, I don't know either way, but I'm trying to use Occam's razor here, right?
You're trying to rationalize.
Yeah. And I mean, because I know lots and lots of witches. Witches are my favorite people. I love witches, most of the witches that I know, right? So it's and none of them control Sasquatch with their mind. Okay? Not a single one of them. And I've never read any kind of, so maybe there is some type of juju specifically for Sasquatch controlling, but I've never encountered. It's possible, I guess, if you're of the mindset that anything's possible. But from my experience with witches, nah. Now, she might religiously be a witch, right? Maybe she does practice witchcraft non-religiously, but traditionally. That's possible, right?
Could she be the physical manifestation of something, like she wasn't really there? Which would lead me to another question that I have for you.
There have been so we talk about physical manifestation, right? So everything you see in front of you right now, with your eyes, with your ears, with your nose, with all your senses, it comes into your brain, and then you produce this hallucination of it, basically, right? And so you're not actually engaging the physical world ever, right? You are seeing you're experiencing a hallucination that is a collection of all your senses. So if a demon or a spirit wanted to get you to pay attention to it, would it be easier for that spirit to manifest a physical thing, or would it be easier for it to interact with your mind and your information processing and put itself there as a hallucinatory event, right?
Right.
So that's like, I feel like it's so much easier for them to give you a targeted hallucinatory event than it would be for them to actually manifest a body for like, 10 seconds to scare some guy in the woods in Montana? Like, come on, right? That's a lot of effort.
Well,
Maybe.
I kind of sincerely disagree with you on that, but that's okay. You have way more experience than me. I'm probably wrong. Well, one thing...
Maybe, but... does she leave, like, if she's leaving footprints and stuff, if she's engaging with the rest of her, he grabbed her, so obviously she's a physical person, right? Like, obviously she's a real thing, right? She's not a hallucination, is what I'm saying. And in my experience, it's easier for spirits to cause hallucinatory events than it is for them to manifest themselves physically as entities, right?
Right.
They're like,
I get that. But if they gathered enough strength and really wanted to, could they physically manifest themselves into an actual corporal being?
I get, again, under the assumption that anything's possible and judging by anecdotal evidence, right? So if you look at accounts, yes, they supposedly can manifest as physical entities. But if you look at the evidence if I look at the evidence that I've experienced, when I believe that I have encountered a physical entity during a ritual, there has been no like physical evidence behind, right? Like,
right. Well, it would be extremely rare and probably an extreme expenditure of energy on their part to do so, or it would have to be a very powerful being, I'm guessing.
I'm not saying like, and then again, maybe as far as physical manifestation goes, wouldn't it also be easy to like take over an old homeless woman, right? So
my personal feeling is that it was some old woman that maybe was possessed or out there, or had not possessed per se, but maybe had influence. Something was more going on with this story than typical Bigfoot activity that I've heard. There's something else turning gears or something else pushing buttons in this story. The story goes way beyond the synopsis that.
What I'm thinking is that maybe this woman, even if she wasn't actually demonically engaged, right? Which again, I'm saying is a possibility. I'm not going to discount it because again, no, we don't have a perfect knowledge of anything ever, right? But maybe I feel like it sounds like this woman might have been influencing this group of hominids in a way so that their behavior was influenced by her behavior, right? Maybe this woman was a grifter. Like maybe she went around breaking into houses and stuff. Maybe the reason that they were knocking on windows, sneaking around houses is because they saw her doing it, right? Maybe, so maybe she was having a antisocial
for Dave.
Or maybe, or maybe it was something as mundane as she was just bringing them food and apples every day and they were her friends.
And we expect that behavior from humans.
Right, and she was very rudimentarily, pointing at the houses and saying, make those people go away or something,
I got
like Princess Frog or whatever.
What's going on?
Uh-oh.
What's going on, Dean?
Dustin, I was just talking to Dustin. I said, you got any questions? Because I feel bad. I always hijack the conversation when Dave's on, as if it like happens all the time. But like the first time he was on, the one other time he was on, I was hijacking the conversation like nonstop. And I realized that like I leave Dustin just sitting here, twiddling his thumbs. And I feel bad about that. But I do. I feel bad about that. But I've always got like all these questions because Dave's got this connection that like none of us will ever really have. So I'm always trying to, like at this point, I'm trying to get Dustin to engage with him because I'm like, otherwise he's just going to sit here and feel bad about, driving all this way to, not ask anything. But he said, it's funny, he said he's afraid to talk to Dave because he's got these connections, which is like, I think most people in our position should be afraid to talk to Dave. I think we should. And it's not because he's, because he's a bad guy or because he's got these connections or because he's dealing with scary stuff. But I think like somebody who is at a position, and I think of this, I watched this thing on Netflix the other day about how a priest was afraid to do, or he didn't like to do exorcisms because he was afraid to encounter Satan. And that bothered me because I was like, because this guy was like a bishop, and I said, why would this guy be afraid of Satan? And I get it, like if in that, I get it, but at the same time, like a priest or a bishop being afraid to encounter something that they are supposed to encounter. You know what I mean? Like that bothered me about that particular guy. So like, I get it where people should be maybe like uneasy talking to Dave, but at the same time, like, he's like a guy that you can talk to get the information that you need without having to dig into it yourself. And that's I even used him in a I cited him in a paper I wrote recently because like he's like this useful knowledge bringer or like font of knowledge, for lack of a better word, and these questions that we have that maybe we wouldn't get otherwise, like he's got the answers, and if he doesn't have the answers, he has a way of delivering like a, well, it could be, and like pointing us in the right direction, which is like the most you can expect of, or like, it's what you can expect of somebody in this particular type of thing. So no, I didn't mean to interrupt, and I did, and I feel bad about that. But that's what we were talking about. So
sometimes I talk and forget that people can hear me.
But no, I know you had another question, Matt, and then I know I've got a few more, and we're going to keep Dave here all night, and we're going to keep the people who are like our very loyal fans. You guys are going to be stuck here all night with us, it seems like. But
I've got one or two things, and I'll kind of shut the F up, and you guys can continue with your show.
I like how you edit, like we're the kind of show that you need to edit yourself for.
Yeah, we're going to edit out all the profanity. We're going to have a 10-minute show. So the next question is, Dave, have you ever heard of this creature people see all across the United States, but it seems to have a certain prevalence in the South and the Midwest, called the Dog Man?
Actually, so Dogman, have you ever heard people call it like rake and crawler and shit? Because I've heard all those names used sort of interchangeably amongst people who talked to me about an entity that looks like a humanoid with a dog head. And sometimes it's got fur, sometimes it doesn't.
Well, as somebody in my paranormal neck of the woods, the rake, which I've done videos and research on every one of these subjects, is something quite different. The rake,
I always like a spirit, right?
Yeah, the rake seems to be some kind of a spirit or some kind of a lower level demon, not my words, but other people have described it. Something that it's this white, emaciated, crawling around on all four, almost like a skeleton with skin on it. And it's a bad omen. And I've even heard some strange stories where like little gnomes have come out in front of people's houses where people, just normal housewives, says, what the hell is that? And it's a rake in their backyard, one of these white demon creatures, and this little gnome runs out and shoos this rake away, like protecting their house. I've heard some weird shit.
Yeah, me too. About the rake specifically. But so as far as the dogmen go, I've heard about. I grew up in Alabama, so in the deep South.
They call it Rougarou.
Yeah, and
Rougarou.
Yeah, we do have sort of stories, because anecdotal stories. I grew up hearing these anecdotal stories coming from around my neighborhood, and I spent a lot of time out in the woods at night, and I've seen some weird shit out there.
It's really interesting down south because not only do you have this Rougarou Dogman thing, but you'll have a lot of Bigfoot sightings, which they call like a wood booger.
That shit.
And
I haven't ever seen any of that.
Yeah,
most of the stuff. So I grew up around Foul River, and then Theodore, sort of Mobile Bay area.
Okay.
And so we never called it. So the name I never heard, like Rougarou is Cajun-y, right?
Yeah, that's
so I guess if you were a little more, if you were a little west of me, that's probably what they would have called it. But the dog man is what we always called it down. Well, we always heard it referred to down there. So this is one of the things that I remember hearing about as a kid, specifically. It wasn't like Bigfoot sightings specifically. It was all the kids in the elementary school. We talked about, oh, there were dog men, or there was the dog man, or he saw it, or if you go out in the woods at night around Foul River, you know, you'll see it out by the banks, and you'll hear it, you know. And there were coyotes out there, and there were big old dogs out there.
Well, I know, like around like Taylor, Mississippi, and around Mississippi area, the Choctaw and Chickasaw Indian tribes have traditions going back hundreds and hundreds of years with the Dogman and Bigfoots doing battles and war over territory, and then like humans kind of getting mixed up in the mix of it as well. It's very fascinating. But the main point is there's been a lot of stuff in the cryptid world, of the Bigfoot world and the Dogman world. These people that, well, I hate to use the term researchers. We're not researching anything. I just call myself a Bigfoot enthusiast, more or less. But there's a lot of stuff going on where I've heard a lot of reports from reputable people that with the Dogman specifically, now you do hear this with Bigfoot as well, although I will say this is more rare with Bigfoot, but you hear specifically with Dogman that there are two distinct things going on. What we're talking about is a 7 to 8 to 9 foot tall, upright bipedal walking dog. Now they have more of a dog's leg with kind of that elongated forepaw. You know how kind of a dog's, you know, knee is forward and they have that forepaws and almost like they have two knees. So we're talking an upright walking canine with broad shoulders between 7 and 9 and 10 feet tall that travel in packs. So you're talking some kind of a large, ferocious-looking canine creature that people see. Now, the one thing that people describe is that these are regular creatures. They see them. People report, oh, every November they come through our property. We leave them alone. They leave us alone. Other people have reported out hunting that they come across one or two of these creatures eating berries, or eating a dead deer, or pooping, or peeing, or sleeping, or doing all the things you would expect some kind of a creature to do. Then there are reports of a Dogman creature that look pretty much identical to the animal, cryptid, undiscovered creatures, we call it. I call them monsters personally. But they have a certain quality that when people have shot at them, the bullets have no effect. And people have tried to stab them and shot arrows. There's reports of dogmen being a problem in certain areas. This is all just hearsay, obviously, that they've spent, you know, special forces in certain groups to go hunt these creatures down. And there's one famous story kind of going around the internet that a former SF guy had him and his buddy a part of a team. They came across one of these dogman creatures and they started unloading on it with a 308. Then his buddy starts unloading on it. They were shooting, what do you call them? M14s, the M21s, the sniper variants of the M14s. Pretty much like a 20-round 308 full battle rifle. And they're both just dumping rounds into the dogman creature. They both saw it, and after about, 15 or 20 seconds of just unloading 308 ammo into this creature, the creature finally kind of stood up, kind of shook a little bit, looked back at the two snipers that were shooting at him, and just trotted off. They said they both saw it. It both looked exactly the same. It left tracks. And people in the area reported this specific one because it had a certain colorization. And there are also different stories of people encountering these dogman creatures and, blowing their faces off with shotguns and catching them in bear traps and shooting them and them yipping. Like, there are reports of something otherworldly going on where they seem to be like in God mode where they can't take any damage. And then there's other reports of these creatures being like a natural creature that you breathe and can die. And that's what I really wanted to ask you. What do you think's going on here when somebody from, 100 yards away unloads, 308 fire into a beast the size of a giant upright walking dog, and it just shrugs it off like nothing's happened? And there's also other reports of people shooting dogmen and having the same effect, where they shot it with rifles and no effect. And there's one story where this guy at the Skinwalker Ranch actually shot one of these giant creatures with a big, giant, powerful, like a 338 Win Mag, and it blew a chunk of flesh off of this demonic creature, and the flesh smelled very putrid and sick. Yeah, I know that's a lot to take in, but I just wanted to get your opinion on these two different things that are going on.
Well, so again,
Here comes back.
demonic as an adjective to describe something that is monstrous and malevolent, right? Versus demonic as a classification of spiritual entities which have made a decision to align themselves with satanic forces, right? So like, if there is an animal, right, that exists, some kind of dog man animal, right?
That's scary enough on its own without any kind of,
Exactly.
as a natural ferocious creature, that's pretty fucking creepy.
Yeah, like I don't see. I feel like it's a misclassification to call it a demonic entity when it's clearly doesn't need any help being scary as fuck and dangerous. Right.
But like I was saying, there's clearly two things going on here. You know, where they also describe these things as vanishing and appearing randomly. Like people describe them as, all of a sudden just appearing in front of them, and then they also describe these creatures as like traveling in a pack. But I don't know. It's up to you to let me know. Do you think something we don't understand could match itself into the form of a dogman because they know it's scary? If you're going to pick a form, you might as well pick something scary. Or there's a lot of theories about interdimensional, that you're seeing something from another dimension phase in and out from the vibrational frequencies.
It's possible that if there are an infinite parallel alternate timelines and alternate dimensions, I mean, the concept of these things being singular and separate from one another, nothing in nature is singular and separate, right? So if there are parallel timelines and dimensions, they are definitely porous, and there definitely will be, leaks, I guess, or perceptions of other ones, right? I mean, because again, all perception is, we're experiencing the electrons bouncing off of something right now. Imagine if you maybe were looking at something that was existing in a parallel timeline that maybe you could see, and only for a fraction of a second even, right? And then it's gone. I mean, you're just looking at the light, right? And these photons can travel. We're not suggesting that an entity itself maybe has jumped between timelines or dimensions. All it would really be required is the photons bouncing off of that organism to jump. And these subatomic particles, it's a lot easier to conceptualize those things jumping through dimensions than it is to conceptualize the full organism, right? To see it, all it would require is the light bouncing off of it to jump.
I was going to ask you, are you familiar with the concept or the science of ultrasound?
I'm familiar in passing, again, I'm not a scientist.
Yeah. Actually, it's not ultra. What's the opposite of ultrasound? The infrasound. Infrasound. I'm sorry. Now, there's a lot of theories about that Bigfoot and certain large, because elephants do it, crocodiles do it, tigers do it, where they use infrasound.
What are you doing?
They can vibrate their vocal cords at such a low frequency, you can't hear it physically, but it has effects over the human body. And this is actually proven in science. I have an engineering background, and if you have an error,
I'm familiar with that infrasound causing, because I was in the infantry in Baghdad in 2000 and something, and we, I've seen sound do weird shit to people, to just put it that way.
Yeah, like if you're in a truck for a long time, or a building with a bad an air conditioner or something, but that can cause
sound to do shit to people from great distances. The idea of an entity being able to emit an infrasonic, effect at a distance is, it's feasible in my opinion.
Right. Well, one of the theories is, at least with Bigfoot, I've never really heard it applied to Dogman, is that they can control these vibrational frequencies that they emit so well that they can, because your eyeballs, everything has a vibrational frequency, that they can actually manipulate how your eyes are perceiving something. And that's how, when they reported that a Bigfoot cloaked like a predator. And infrasound can make you feel really hot on a cold day, or cold on a hot day. It can make you feel happy. It can make you feel sad. And they think that this is one of the reasons why when people encounter Bigfoot, they get this very impending fear, doom, death, like the devil's looking over their shoulder, kind of an evil feeling. And a lot of people report it to be one of their infrasound, that they're making these frequencies that disrupt the human body.
I feel like that's definitely feasible.
Yeah, this is one of kind of the theories, but like with them cloaking and then moving in and out, like I guess if you have the right frequency going loud enough, you can disrupt the human eye, and you can actually, if you could coordinate it, not that Bigfoots have this ability, but if you're in a certain spot in the world that has a certain type of frequency, that some kind of a force we don't understand, kind of like what you were saying about how it's easier for a demon to make you think you're seeing something than to actually make it really be there. You know, it makes you kind of wonder if they're using some kind of frequency with the universe, or how we perceive it, or with our eyeballs to make that happen. Because that's actually science. You can make people hallucinate if you have the right infrasound signature.
Oh, absolutely. I've seen it happen firsthand. Like, I'm not sure how much of it I can talk about, but suffice to say, I've seen weaponized infrasonic devices that do that kind of shit to great distance. And it's totally feasible.
Yes. So, what do you think of these creatures that people see but they shoot at and have no effect? Do you think that? So you're under the assumption that it's probably easier for something to make them think they're seeing it and they're really shooting at nothing, as opposed to some kind of manifestation.
Let me jump in real quick. I'm gonna interrupt only because I'm gonna add to Mattsquatch's question because of what we talked about the other day, Mattsquatch, and how and we even talked about this earlier in this episode about demons being cast into animals and how potentially that's a thing. As far as we know, based off of biblical accounts and so on and so forth. But on top of everything else, like if in fact, I guess my question is to, and I'm going to add, I know you've already got like 4 questions for Mattsquatch, but I'm going to throw a couple more on there.
I'm pretty much done.
No, I'm going to keep adding sub-questions to his to make Dave's job a whole lot more difficult. But
oh yeah,
so are demons able, in your opinion, to take over animals? And now, more importantly, if they were able to, and if they were, if they're taking over people as well, are they able to, as we know from like possession cases and so on and so forth, and how they're given like almost like a superhuman strength, they're able to do more based on their own abilities through the human body. Would they be able to do the same thing to animals? Would they be able to change the form of an animal? So, for instance, and because I know I have like spaghetti brain, and I talk like 7 steps ahead of where I'm at. If say a demon were to inhabit a wolf, would it be able to change the form? Like, because these demons are sentient beings who have their own opinions of like how they want to be and what they want to do. Would they be able to say, hey, I know I'm in a wolf that walks on all 4s, but I also want to walk on 2 feet, but also I want to be bigger and I want to be scarier. Is that a thing that would be within their ability? And I know where you're going to say, if they are an invisible flying monster, but if that were the case, if they were able to do these things, is that something that is within their in their ability?
Let's unpack it a little bit. So animals. So we have in the literature animals being possessed by demons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you say take over, right? I like to say exist collaboratively, right? Because it's not so much a matter of like taking the control thereof, right? Because a demon doesn't have the same apparatus as you do, so it's not like he's taking the steering wheel from you. You know what I mean? You're the only one that ever has the steering wheel, the demon is just, also driving the car. It's existing collaboratively. So, yeah, I feel like demons could definitely exist collaboratively with animals, right? And animals standing up on their hind legs, who are not supposed to be standing up on their hind legs, is also in the literature and traditionally, right? I have never seen it myself personally, but having animals standing up on their hind legs and walking around like people, mimicking human speech, doing stuff like that, that's in the lore and literature. So, like I said, it's definitely within the realm of possibility. Now, as far as being bigger and scarier, again, like I'm saying, that doesn't require a physical change. It requires a change in the perception.
How we perceive them, yeah.
Right. But like, if you were standing on your hind legs as an animal is not within the realm. It's not outside the realm of possibility because, right? And also, we have accounts of demons being able to lift things and levitate objects, and we've seen that in the lore anecdotally as well. So it's like, according to all the anecdotes we have, it's not impossible, and it's not outside the realm of probability either. Because we've had accounts of that very thing, right? And I don't know why they would do it other than it sounds like a fucking cool time. You know what I mean? To me, if somebody's like, you can possess a deer and make it stand on its hind legs and mimic human speech and dance around in circles in the woods and like roll your eyes back at people, like, I'd be like, fuck yeah, let's do that. That's my Saturday night.
So what?
Well, it certainly creeps people out. So.
Yeah, and so like we're thinking like the movie The Witch, which I know is a movie, and I'm not going to be that guy who's like, oh well, in the documentary The Witch, but like I understand that it's a film, and I really like that movie, and I'm gonna talk about that movie real quick. If you've not seen it, it's on Netflix, and you should watch it. If for no other reason, then it's weird, and it'll make you feel weird on the inside. Like if you're like the kind of person who likes a good scary movie, that it's not something that rewrote the book on scary movies, but it's definitely a good time, and it'll make you feel uncomfortable the whole time you watch it. But there's Black Phillip, and when he's up on his hind legs, there's nothing more unsettling than a black goat on its hind legs jumping around. You know what I mean? Like, so like that sort of thing. I could see where that would be fun, like you said, like it would be something to do.
Yeah.
And if we were to kind of like look back at the biblical account of demons and what demons are, thousands upon thousands upon thousands of angels, and then a third of them were cast to earth with Lucifer, and now they're all just hanging out looking for something to do. So perhaps, like there are some out there that are just like us, who just want to mess with people, and then there are some who are very like ambitious with their goals and what they intend to do, and they have more like professional things that they'd rather be doing. And then, but yeah, there's obviously going to be some kind of shenanigans going on, but yeah, that's kind of where I was going with it. Like, I don't know. I'm drunk, so I'm having a hard time remembering. Like, I'll start talking about something, and just eventually I'll get somewhere, and I'm like, is that where I was trying to go? I don't know.
Well, Tom, right up that alley, there's a cryptid that's very rare, but people have seen it. Have you ever heard of the Goat Man?
Yes.
And there's a number of stories.
Dave begrudgingly is like, yes, I have. Like, what did he do to you, Dave? What did the Goat Man do to you?
Nothing. Goat Man's good stuff. No, I mean, it's classic. Goat Man's some classic cryptid shit.
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is one story that really stood out to me is this kid was in his backyard playing, and the backyard, it just kind of ends, and then there's a wood line there. His backyard is his normal yard with grass, and then there's like a forest back there, like a big green belt. And one of the stories was this kid was out there, and this random goat, like just a normal black goat, with this strange, like, white hourglass or strange symbol on its forehead came out of the woods. And he was like, "Oh, hello, Mr. Goat." He was like a 7 or 8 year old boy. And he thought that was very odd. And the goat was kind of like waving his head and kind of coming at him and going back into the woods. And the little boy said that he thought the goat was trying to lead him into the woods. And then he said, he didn't follow him. So later he goes inside the house. He said, "Dad, I saw a black goat in the backyard." And his dad's like, "What the hell are you talking about, a black goat?" He said, "Yeah, it had this white sheep on its head. And it was trying to get me to go in the woods, I think." And his dad didn't think anything of it. Well, later on, the dad saw this 7 to 8 foot tall, 2-legged, up on its hind legs goat man with actual physical arms and physical legs. And what he saw under its right arm was a 3-year-old boy, and his dad knew the 3-year-old boy was the boy from down the street. And apparently this guy screamed at it, unloaded a bunch of buckshot at it, and blew off chunks of its horns. And this thing apparently just like looked at him and just stomped off and ran off into the woods with his little boy under his arms. And that had to be by far the most fucked up, creepy Goatman story I've ever heard. But people just like Bigfoot or like Dogman report to see these really odd-looking Goatman-looking creatures.
Well, I mean, and this has been the case for thousands of years. Semitic demons in Judaism have been described as goat-headed demons that prowl the wilderness and pick off travelers and children, right? And again, like I feel like this may be a case of misattribution, right, to an entity that exists in the physical as a creature, right? Maybe as a species of animal, right? And that has been attributed to a demon just because people now take demon to mean, because it's been missed, because like I was saying, the concept of a scapegoat, right?
I'm gonna try to get
Right.
Demons tend to describe things that we consider dangerous, or things that and then we interact with them. The demons aren't the sandstorm, but the demons describe the sandstorm, and so we interact with the demons, and we are able to then interact with the sandstorm, for instance, right? And so, and just like Pazuzu was the demon king that represented disease, right? He is not disease, right? And the Assyrians, and when they're interacting with it, they're interacting with disease itself. Disease is germs. They're interacting with the demon and thereby interacting with a thing that they can't interact with themselves, right? And so when you give demonic association to things that are harmful, the harmful thing itself isn't necessarily the demon, right? The demon is the spiritual entity that represents that harmful thing. So maybe there are these goat-men entities because, who the fuck knows what's up?
Yeah, well, I just kind of wanted to, the part that struck me was, as somebody who already believes and who's had encounters with a large unknown discovered ape in the woods, the transfiguration part of it, where, it looks like a conventional goat to a very stretched out, larger, buffer, bigger, scarier version of the same goat later being described. I thought that part of it was really fascinating.
And another thing that, one thing I want to point out with animals, when we see an animal on the ground crouched, right, they tend to be so much more compressed than when they actually do stand up and extend themselves. So it's possible that there was no type of transmutation involved in the story at all, but that this creature that may have been large, right, was merely down on its, on its quarters, being, on all fours and compressed, and the kid really didn't describe it accurately as what size it was, And he's saying, like I said, it wasn't right up next to the kid, right? So maybe the kid's description of the size of the creature wasn't accurate, and with no transmutation at all, it just stood up. And when the dad saw it, its scale was more accurate.
Well, and for me being into this cryptid stuff, you start off hearing, Bigfoot might exist, having an encounter, and then you start hearing about this dog man character, and then you start looking into like Loch Ness Monster, and then you start hearing about the goat man, and then the Loveland frog, and the Enfield horror, and Champ, and all these other different creatures that people see in the woods repeatedly, and devil monkeys, and pugwudgies, all this different, because you just start going down that road. And for me, as somebody who's into this, I kind of have a sliding scale. Like, if a number one is where people see, mountain lions in Maine when they're not supposed to be mountain lions in Maine. To me, that's like, it's a known creature. It's technically a cryptid. And then on the other end of it, you have the Loveland frog, which is a 5-foot frog creature that waves a wand that runs across the ground in the snow. Like from a 1 to like a 9.0 to like a 10 on the weird shit scale. So it seems like there's much like Tom's sexuality, there is a spectrum here.
That's the funny thing. Is like nobody knows. Like if you didn't know better, there would be people who are like, "Is he gay? Is he straight? I don't know." Like and I mean, I'm sure there's even people who still know that they're like, "Well, he's got 3 kids and he's married. Well, is he gay or is he straight? I don't know. Like I still don't know."
I come out here every night wondering, are you gay or are you straight?
James, I see you with your guitar. If you speaking of whether or not Tom's gay or not, do you have a song for us?
Well, I'm done. Play me out, dude.
It's actually called Tom is in fact gay. So, I've been working on it for a while now. Alright, so I gotta play Mattsquatch out?
Yeah, I got it. My family's here and my little girl wants to say goodnight, so.
Alright, do we want heavier or softer?
It doesn't matter. I've had a half a bottle of whiskey.
Just fill it back, man.
Alright, I'll give it a shot. Not a shot of whiskey. But, yeah.
Or like a shot in the mouth.
Cheetah?
Like Guam.
Well, I hope everyone got their fill of information for the night. 'Cause Mattsquatch is leaving, so everything else will be bullshit. He's the only one who provides us with anything we can actually take. Except Dave Outlandish, if you're into that thing. I didn't mean to call him a thing. I understand how that sounded. I just meant demonology was a thing. It's a lot easier to think about what Mattsquatch does because it's not as scary. Demons are pretty scary. Unless Bigfoot's a demon, then in that case I might be my pants. But not before I put on this horse mask. What do you think this thing lasts? It's not Mattsquatch, even though he said you do it. I don't really think I do it. No offense.
Yeah, you can't talk about Dave Outlandish and like anything negative whatsoever, which is why we're probably also nice to Dave Outlandish because we know he's got all these connections of people who could really, or like entities that could really fuck with us.
So like here, I'll do this. Hi, Dave. I have not said hi to you because I'm over here scared the whole time.
Don't be scared of me.
Be scared of who I talked to.
Tom said, I'm having Dave Outlandish back on, and I'm like, fuck!
Yeah, no, I've been talking about it. Like, I messaged, as soon as we had that conversation, Dave, I said, let me get a hold of Dustin and James and make sure that, that they're going to be there. And then as soon as I told him, I didn't hear anything from Dustin for like 3 days. Like he said,
I was getting my mind right, man.
He was like, "Yeah, I'll be there," and that was it. That's all I heard from him. I tried to talk to him a few times, nothing. I didn't get nothing from him. And then finally today, I'm like, "You gonna be here at 9?" He's like, "Yep," and that was it. Like that's all Dustin and I have said to each other this whole time because he's been
in
like
prayer.
He's like,
It's been 3 days in church.
Okay, well, Dave, I gotta get going. It was very nice.
All right, man. Hey, it was nice talking to you, man.
We'll have to go out in the woods sometimes. And
Fuck yeah, go out in the woods, baby!
If you ever want to look for some little people, man, I'm down. Let's go.
Little people. I'm right here, man.
They were talking. They're talking about little people.
you mean like midget porn? No.
Hey, dude, I'm open, G.
Oh, okay. Well,
We're on like Love Connection now with Dave and Mattsquatch.
but seriously, folks, I feel like there's a lot of crossover between our two worlds here. You didn't even talk to like the alien people. I think it's all connected somehow. So, just want to say thank you very much. You've been very enlightening. And James, Tom, and my heart goes out to D. Me, thanks.
Love you, bro.
What about me? I used to be a sweet, innocent young man before I met these
Hey,
two.
shut the fuck up, Jamus.
Bye, Jamus. Thanks for playing me off. You actually played really good tonight, not like crap like usual.
I don't know whether to say thank you or go fuck myself, but thank you.
All right. Well, good night, James. Good night, everybody. Stay safe in the
Good night.
woods.
Good night.
Always.
All right, Dave. I know we've kept you here forever. It's 11:11 out by you. It's probably like dinner time, right? So the but no, I do want to do a thing with you. Anything that you want to say, I'm happy. I mean, we'd love to hear it because, like I said, anything that you have to say, I'm always like super interested in what you've got to say. However, I do want to have something. This is the longest we've ever had double digits on our viewership, and we've been sticking around 10 to 15 this whole time. So you've been bringing them in, and a lot of people, they come and go. The people who like see us on the main page of Periscope and shit, they come and go when they're like, when they hear like the weird stuff we're talking about, they tend to leave. But we have had a loyal fan base of between 10 and 15, and I know some of those people. I've seen a few of the names, and I know a few of them are people who would love to have like. I know you did a little bit from the beginning, but like if you were to sum up how to summon a demon, like for dummies, like for just some guy who wants to do it and wants to talk. I don't endorse this. Like, don't put my name on this. But Dave, if you wanna tell people how to do it, by all means, we'd love to hear it.
Step 1, figure out what you want, right? Like I said, be realistic, right? Step 2, research the demons, right? There are sources everywhere. The Ars Goetia is a good place to start, right? Figure out which demon is the best at what you want, right? Then invite that demon to a shindig at your place, right? It's got to be interesting enough to be worth that demon's time. During that shindig, make a pact, make a deal, right? Don't expect physical manifestation. Don't expect the demon to move shit for you. Don't expect it to entertain you like that, right? If it happens, it happens. I've seen weird shit happen. I didn't command or compel that shit to occur, right? Just imagine it like you're inviting, a professional over to, you want to have a party, you got to impress them, right? That's 101. Figure out what you want, figure out which demon's good at that, invite him to a party, make a deal.
And that's it.
Yeah, and that's it. And that's
See?
what I would say.
It's that simple, people. So
Yeah, and that's really, it is that simple. Now, it's as simple as saying be attractive, don't be unattractive, right? Like, how do you throw a party that's interesting enough for these demons? How do you make your offer enticing enough, right? And so that's really the trick. And a lot of people kind of will overestimate how attractive they are to the opposite side and be like, I want to sell my soul to hell for, all this fortune and fame because I'm amazing. And it's like, you gotta look at yourself a little more objectively than that. And at the same time, pride is a thing that attracts a specific set of demons, right? So maybe thinking that you are the shit and that your soul is worth more than everyone else's on earth, maybe that's going to attract a specific set of demons in and of itself, right? Point is that if you want to be polite and respectful and let their activity be on their turf, don't try to compel them to do shit to prove themselves to you. If they want to, they will, and you will be fucking satisfied. Trust me. If they want to.
So,
but again, I don't know what you think. So
next week on You Had Me at Bigfoot.
What would you do for a Klondike bar?
there it is.
Would you kill for a Klondike bar?
What is the
Yes.
most you're willing to do for a Klondike bar?
Suck
Go to the
dick.
store, buy one.
Dustin's immediately resorts to gay stuff. James goes, James, the guy what I expect to blow a guy for a Klondike bar, doesn't even do it. Personally, I like Klondike bars, but would I do anything extraordinary for it? No, probably not. I do like ice cream though. Yeah. It's not like we have a shortage of Klondike bars on our end. It's not like we're in a recession or anything where we're like, oh my god, we're all Klondike bars, and there's some guy in the black market with like one of those push carts, and he's got just like a shitload of Klondike bars.
What's that,
He's like,
Zombieland?
Are you willing?
Is that Zombieland?
Yeah.
Where the Twinkies are all going?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some guys out there trying to peddle Klondike bars like in a back alley somewhere. I got a freezer full of them down in my cellar. You want to come down there and check it out?
Are you interested in advertising on You Had Me at Bigfoot? Oh, hell no! Reach out to us at contact@youhadmeatbigfoot.com.